During the Great Rally for Peace and Democracy held on Wednesday in Cali, Colombia, President Gustavo Petro called for dialogue after attacks in the southwest of the country. Threats by the White House to send in the military to cities protesting against the Trump administration's immigration policies have not stopped the nationwide demonstrations. And an Air India flight carrying at least 242 people crashed shortly after taking off from the city of Ahmedabad. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. During the Great Rally for Peace and Democracy held on Wednesday in Cali, Colombia, President Gustavo Petro called for dialogue after attacks in the southwest of the country. During the rally, Petro addressed the people to reject the recent violent acts that took place in Cauca, Valle del Cauca and Cali. He also denounced that an attempt was made to silence this region with terror and fear, leaving dozens of people injured and dead, including civilians and members of the security forces. Likewise, he highlighted the history of social struggles and proposed to recover that memory to build a country based on justice, dignified work and participative democracy. Moreover, the head of state called for national unity, dialogue between opposition parties, and to continue fighting without violence for a more just and peaceful Colombia. In Colombia, the Minister of Justice, Eduardo Montealegre, has made a statement regarding the issuance of Presidential Decree number 60639 that calls for a popular consultation to reform labor legislation. The Minister of Justice has identified at least 5 irregularities in the legislative process that violate the country's constitution. The denunciation arises after the vote of the bill in the Senate. Among the irregularities mentioned are the omission of the reading of the proposition and the discrepancies in the vote count. Montealegre argues that the Congress of the Republic has openly violated the Colombian Constitution by issuing an unfavorable concept regarding the popular consultation. Former Argentine President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner requested to serve her sentence under house arrest due to insecurity risk and the need for protection after the attack suffered in 2022. Her lawyers requested to maintain her official custody and reject the use of an electronic anklet while preparing an appeal before the Inter-American Court of Human Rights. Judge Jorge Corini granted a deadline for the former president to appear without prior detention, which would allow a political act with her followers. Critics qualify the sentence as a political persecution and defend that the common prison would be incompatible with her security conditions as ex-president. Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva also supported the former Argentine President Cristina Fernández after she was sentenced to prison. The head of state expressed on his X account, "I called Cristina Kirchner late this afternoon and expressed my solidarity. I spoke of the importance of her remaining firm at this difficult time. I was pleased to note the calm and determined way in which Cristina is facing this adverse situation and how determined she is to keep fighting." In other news, in Peru, the Ministry of Economy's continued failure to comply with the fiscal rules could affect the country's fiscal credibility. Our correspondent Ramiro Angulo tells us more.
El anuncio hecho por el Ministerio de Economía.
The announcement made by the Ministry of Economy to modify the fiscal deficit rule from 2.2% to 2.8% of gross domestic product has generated concern because it reveals poor management of public finances.
Un mal manejo de las finanzas públicas.
Una cosa es cuando se incrementan los gastos.
It is one thing when expenses increase because investments are being made, services are being expanded, and the state's coverage is being expanded. But unfortunately, much of the expenditure that has been incurred in recent times is expenditure that is basically the result of political clientelism.
El Perú ya lleva 2 años seguidos.
The country has now been in violation of the fiscal deficit rule for 2 years in a row, a fact that, according to experts, could erode financial credibility and lead to higher interest rates on debt.
Endeudamientos a tasas más elevadas.
Si tus gastos comienzan a dispararse y tus ingresos
If your expenses start to skyrocket and your income is not growing, has stagnated, or, as is happening in some cases, is starting to decline, what is happening? You start to go into debt, and sooner or later you will have to pay that debt. So the financial sustainability of the Peruvian state is being mortgaged by a Congress that is already leaving.
en estos momentos con un Congreso que ya se va, ¿no?
Para los especialistas,
For experts, this mismanagement is the responsibility of a Ministry of Economy subordinate to Congress,
subordinado a un Congreso que, entre otras cuestionadas,
which, among other controversial initiatives, intends to grant tax benefits of nearly $5 billion to agricultural exporters.
$5.000 millones a los agroexportadores.
Hay una posición del Congreso
There is a position in Congress that is not only committed to favoring powerful economic groups,
económico, que son las grandes transnacionales o las grandes grupos económicos,
such as large transnational corporations or powerful economic groups in the agricultural export sector and other sectors, but there are also congressmen who, as you know, are involved in corrupt acts.
y con acto inclusive de que mochan sus sueldos a sus trabajadores.
And they even cut the salaries of their workers. And there is also a Congress that we all know has a 5% approval rating and a government that has a 0% approval rating, so all of this is harmful to workers and the Peruvian people.
Todo eso perjudica a los trabajadores y al pueblo peruano.
Para el economista y ex viceministro de Trabajo
For economist and former Minister of Labor Fernando Codros, this scenario is worrying due to low tax pressure and the various risks that poor management of public finances can generate.
el mal manejo de las finanzas públicas.
El principal riesgo ahí, como te comentaba, es que
The main risk, as I mentioned, is that not enough will be collected to be able to provide quality services, which will increase the fiscal deficit.
eso nos lleve a utilizar el ahorro fiscal que debería ser para situaciones extraordinarias. Que si se acaba
That this leads us to use the fiscal savings that should be reserved for extraordinary situations, and if those fiscal savings are exhausted, we end up incurring more debt as a country, with a higher public debt burden,
como país y que, digamos, perdamos la credibilidad.
and we lose credibility and the trust of international economic agents, and that investment in the country is reduced.
Y que se reduzca la inversión en el país.
Para los expertos, esta situación va a
Experts believe that this situation will lead to less resources being allocated to key sectors such as education and public health, affecting the most vulnerable.
pública, afectando a los más vulnerables. Desde Lima, para TeleSUR, Ramiro Angulo Maquiavelo.
On Thursday morning, Bolivian President Luis Arce confirmed that a third member of the police force lost his life in the southwest town of Yayagua in the midst of operations to clear road blockades. In an appearance accompanied by Vice President David Choquehuanca and other government officials, the president confirmed the death of second lieutenants Carlos Enrique Apata Altola and Brian Jorge Barroso Rodriguez, and also second Sergeant Jesus Alberto Mamani Morales, all graduates of the National Police Academy. According to official reports, the events occurred after being ambushed in the midst of operations to clear road blockades. In this context, the head of state sent his condolences to the relatives of the deceased and assured that the government will not resign and that the operations will continue. The most recent report by the International Organization for Migration states that the number of people displaced in Haiti has increased by 24% in just 6 months. A report released on Thursday confirmed that the criminal group's silence had forced 11% of Haitian citizens to flee their homes. Amy Pope, the organization's Director General, reiterated that urgent actions cannot be delayed. She stated that the strength and resilience of the Haitian people can no longer be taken advantage of. Moreover, the United Nations Children's Fund adds that 1 in 6 Haitian children has been displaced due to violence. The International Organization for Migration points out that shelters are overcrowded and it is impossible to meet the most basic needs of all these people. And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Threats by the White House to send in the military to cities protesting against the Trump administration's immigration policies have not stopped the demonstrations. In fact, more and more states are joining every day. The city of Seattle in the state of Washington experienced an intense day that lasted until the early hours of Thursday morning. A peaceful gathering of large numbers of people in Anderson Park was disrupted by a small group of demonstrators who allowed immigration agents to carry out a violent operation. Meanwhile, protesters spread to several other cities, with demonstrators denouncing the wave of terror against migrant neighborhoods, threats against regional governments, and the imposition of military forces. Despite the rejection of the Californian government, several Marines are expected to deploy in the streets of Los Angeles on Thursday. The President of Mexico, Claudia Sheinbaum, denied the statements made by the U.S. Secretary of National Security, Kristi Noem, who accused the President of encouraging violent protest in the United States. Antonio Aranda provides more information on the following report.
La presidenta Claudia Sheinbaum rechazó que haya realizado
President Claudia Sheinbaum denied that she had called on Mexican migrants to mobilize, as stated by Kristi Noem, the United States Secretary of National Security.
Yesterday,
when the Secretary of Homeland Security made this statement, we immediately said it was absolutely false. We have never called for action in Los Angeles.
Sheinbaum denunció que diversos políticos opositores.
Sheinbaum denounced that several opposition politicians took her comments against the tax on remittances out of context.
Personajes de la política mexicana.
Mexican political figures are posting on social media that these protests are being incited by the president and the party.
Por la presidenta y por el partido Morena. Esa misma noche.
This is absolutely false. We are against any violent action.
Estamos en contra de cualquier acción violenta.
La mandataria mexicana informó que tocará el tema de las redadas.
The Mexican president announced that she will address the issue of raids against migrants during her meeting with Christopher Landa, United States Deputy Secretary of State.
Siempre defendemos a los mexicanos allá, es nuestra labor.
We always defend Mexicans abroad, it is our job. And how will we do that today at the meeting with the former United States Ambassador to Mexico, now Under Secretary of State for the United States Department of State, by saying that Mexicans are honest, hardworking people?
Que los mexicanos allá son personas honestas, trabajadoras.
Grupos promigrantes en Estados Unidos.
Pro-immigrant groups in the United States have denounced the raids as a provocation by the Trump administration to instill fear in that sector of the population.
Todo esto corresponde a una estrategia.
All of this is part of Donald Trump's political election strategy. These abuses and the brutality that is taking place in these raids are, we understand, part of Trump's style of generating violence to cause fear.
Que genera la violencia para causar miedo.
Los activistas rechazaron alguna injerencia.
Activists rejected interference by the Mexican government in the protests in Los Angeles and denounced possible infiltrators.
This
use of the call to action made by President Sheinbaum is completely distorted from the reality of the activities of Los Angeles. These people waving Mexican flags on top of patrol cars are not recognized as social leaders. With all these riots in the city, where the possibility cannot be ruled out that these are people who encourage this type of action in order to justify much more violent actions.
Los colectivos en defensa de los derechos de los migrantes.
Groups defending the rights of migrants called for peaceful protests to continue without falling for the provocations of the United States authorities.
De las autoridades estadounidenses. Antonio Aranda, teleSUR, Ciudad de México.
On Wednesday, Cuba's President Miguel Díaz-Canel received in Havana China's Special Representative for Latin American Affairs, Qiu Xiaobi. During the meeting, they emphasized the strength of the bilateral relationship as an exemplar solidarity and cooperation between socialist countries. The Cuban president emphasized that the visit of the Chinese representative presented an opportunity to reaffirm their political commitment to developing relations and finding joint solutions at the highest level. Cuba emphasized the importance of developing and strengthening cooperation with Cuba for the Chinese government and assured the Cuban president that his country would continue to support the island. And we have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Find a short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. An Air India flight carrying at least 242 passengers and crew members crashed shortly after taking off from the city of Ahmedabad in the South Asian nation. Flight 171, a Boeing 787-8 aircraft was departing the city to land at London's Gatwick Airport in the United Kingdom with reportedly 169 Indian nationals, 53 British, 7 Portuguese and 1 Canadian on board. India's Minister of Civil Aviation informed that rescue teams have been mobilized and all efforts are being made to ensure medical aid and relief support are being rushed to the site. For its part, the government of the United Kingdom stated to be working with Indian authorities to urgently establish the facts around the crash and to provide support to those involved. Pending official confirmation, the Ahmedabad Police Commissioner stated that there appears to be no survivors in the sinister. In this context, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi took to his social media X to address the accident, expressing the following: "The tragedy in Ahmedabad has stunned and saddened us. It is heartbreaking beyond words. In this sad hour, my thoughts are with everyone affected by it. Have been in touch with ministers and authorities who are working to assess those affected." "17 patients, mostly children, were evacuated from Gaza and arrived at various Italian airports on Wednesday night, accompanied by 53 relatives. The operation, coordinated by the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs with support from the Defense Ministry, the World Health Organization and the European Civil Protection, used 3 Italian Air Force C-130 planes to transport the injured and sick. The evacuees will receive treatment at hospitals in Milan, Bergamo, Rome, Florence, Verona, Bologna and Modena. This humanitarian effort comes as the Gazan Health Ministry reports the Palestinian death toll from the Israeli genocide has surpassed 55,000, with women and children comprising more than half of the casualties.
Oggi sono arrivati in 18.
Today, 18 people arrived in total, part of a group of 76 or 77, and we now have over 150 Palestinian children. We have approximately a total of 1,000 Palestinians who have left Gaza and have been welcomed in Italy. Italy is one of the countries in the world that has taken in the most refugees from Gaza, and among Western countries, we are the ones who have done the most.
16 more children, 10 of whom are cancer patients, were evacuated from Gaza to hospitals in Jordan for medical treatment. This marks the 5th group of child patients to arrive under the Jordan-Gaza Medical Corridor initiative launched earlier this year. 12 of the children were transported to Jordan by land, while the 4 others were airlifted aboard Royal Jordanian Air Force helicopters. The children were accompanied by 48 family members. 1 child will be transferred to Saudi Arabia and another to the United Arab Emirates for further treatment. The rest will be sent to major hospitals in Jordan for treatment.
My son is suffering from a tumor in the thyroid gland. As a mother, the feeling of seeing a child fall ill but receive no treatment in Gaza is truly very painful. We don't have treatment in Gaza because the situation in Gaza is very, very, very tragic. There is no treatment, even no hospital, no basic hospital there.
An art installation in Portugal pays tribute to the children killed in Gaza by Israel's genocide. We'll tell you more.
Una gran cantidad de ropa y objetos de niños muertos.
A large quantity of clothing and objects belonging to dead children are displayed on a street in Lisbon, a scene that seeks to remember those children who were martyred because of the incessant Zionist attacks.
Incesantes ataques sionistas. La instalación que muestra la realidad de
The installation, which shows the reality in Gaza, aimed to draw the attention of local residents and tourists to the number of child murders since the genocide began in 2023, as well as to raise awareness about this situation.
Así como crear conciencia sobre esta situación.
The exhibition was organized by civil society groups to commemorate International Children's Day, celebrated every June.
Día Internacional del Niño, celebrado todos los meses de junio.
Following the genocide in Gaza, particularly since October 7th, but also the situation in Palestine for decades, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. May has been to many different manifestations, and she understands what's going on as much as a 5-year-old can.
Activistas e integrantes de colectivos recabaron todas.
Activists and members of collectives collected all these garments to be displayed on this street, one of the most emblematic in the historic center of the capital. The installation was accompanied by several events, both at the same site and elsewhere, to demand that the Israeli regime implement a permanent ceasefire in that Palestinian territory.
Alto el fuego definitivo en este territorio palestino.
I believe that people are feeling more and more the need to do something. We are here to raise awareness, and of course, Children's Day is a day on which we cannot forget the suffering, the deep suffering, of the children of Gaza. It is not just about those who have died, although we do mention them, or those who have been injured, but it is not just them. All the children of Gaza are suffering, all the children are going through deep trauma, no child can go to school. So celebrating International Children's Day without remembering the suffering would be a mistake.
De acuerdo a cifras de la Agencia de la ONU para la Infancia, UNICEF.
According to figures from the United Nations Children's Agency, UNICEF, more than 50,000 children have been killed or injured since October 2023, when the Zionist government launched an attack against the entire Palestinian population regardless of their circumstances and innocence. This installation was a new opportunity to raise our voices in support of the right to peace and tranquility in the besieged territory of Gaza.
Y la tranquilidad en el asediado territorio de Gaza.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.